The National Electrical Code, specifically Section 300.4F, mandates that electrical cables must be protected when run outdoors. A common method for achieving this protection is to encase the cables within a conduit system. Several specific National Electrical Code sections directly address the use of conduit for outdoor lighting cables. One such section is 410.68a, which states that cables shall be protected by conduit where subject to physical damage. This implies that if the outdoor lighting cable is in a location where it could be easily damaged by impact, abrasion, or other physical hazards, then it must be run through conduit. Another relevant section is National Electrical Code 410.68c, which stipulates that cables shall be installed in accordance with 300.4 where run outdoors. This means that the general requirements for protecting cables outdoors, as outlined in 300.4, also apply to outdoor lighting cables. The International Building Code also addresses the protection of electrical cables exposed to the weather. Section 2707.13 of the International Building Code mandates that electrical cables must be protected when exposed to the weather. Similar to the National Electrical Code, one acceptable way to protect cables under the International Building Code is to run them through conduit. The International Building Code provides further detail in sections 2707.13 1.1 and 2707.13 1.2. Section 2707.13 1.1 states that outdoor branch circuits shall be installed in accordance with the electrical code, but not less than 6 inches below the surface. This means that even when using conduit, the branch circuit must also comply with the minimum burial depth requirement specified in the electrical code. Section 2707.13 1.2 clarifies that outdoor branch circuit shall be protected by conduit or other approved means. This section recognizes that conduit is not the only acceptable method of protection, allowing for the use of other materials or techniques that meet the approval of the relevant authorities. Considering these code requirements, it is crucial to assess the specific conditions of the outdoor lighting installation to determine whether conduit is required. Factors to consider include the likelihood of physical damage, the degree of exposure to weather, and any local amendments or interpretations of the National Electrical Code or International Building Code. If the cable is in a location where it could be easily damaged, or if the local regulations mandate conduit for all outdoor cable runs, then conduit is required. Even if conduit is not strictly required by code, it may still be a prudent choice to enhance the safety and longevity of the electrical system. Conduit provides an extra layer of protection against physical damage, moisture, and other environmental factors which can extend the lifespan of the cable and reduce the risk of electrical hazards. When selecting conduit for outdoor lighting cable, it is important to choose a type that is suitable for the application. Common types of conduit include rigid metal conduit, intermediate metal conduit, electrical metallic tubing, and rigid polyvinyl chloride conduit. Each type has its own advantages and disadvantages in terms of cost, durability, ease of installation, and resistance to corrosion. Rigid metal conduit is the most durable type of conduit, providing excellent protection against physical damage and corrosion. However, it is also the most expensive and can be difficult to install, requiring specialized tools and techniques. Intermediate metal conduit offers a good balance of durability and cost, making it a popular choice for many outdoor applications. Electrical metallic tubing is a lightweight and relatively inexpensive type of conduit, but it is not as strong or corrosion resistant as rigid metal conduit or intermediate metal conduit. Rigid polyvinyl chloride conduit is a non-metallic type of conduit that is resistant to corrosion and lightweight, making it easy to install. However, it is not as strong as metal conduit and can be damaged by impact or exposure to ultraviolet radiation. In addition to selecting the appropriate type of conduit, it is also important to ensure that the conduit system is properly installed. This includes using the correct fittings and connectors, supporting the conduit at the appropriate intervals, and sealing the conduit to prevent moisture from entering. Improperly installed conduit can compromise the protection it provides and may even create electrical hazards. In summary, the National Electrical Code and International Building Code require electrical cables to be protected when run outdoors, and conduit is a commonly used method for achieving this protection. Specific code sections, such as National Electrical Code 410.68 and 410.68C and International Building Code 27007.13, address the use of conduit for outdoor lighting cables. When determining whether conduit is required, it is important to consider the likelihood of physical damage, the degree of exposure to weather, and any local regulations. Even if conduit is not strictly required, it may still be a prudent choice to enhance the safety and longevity of the electrical system. When selecting conduit, it is important to choose a type that is suitable for the application and to ensure that the conduit system is properly installed. Always consult with a qualified electrician or electrical engineer to ensure that the outdoor lighting installation complies with all applicable codes and regulations. The determination of whether or not conduit is required for outdoor lighting cable depends on several factors. Firstly, the specific edition of the National Electrical Code or International Building Code being enforced in the jurisdiction must be considered, as code requirements can change over time. Secondly, the local amendments to these codes, if any, must be taken into account, as local authorities may have more stringent requirements than the national codes. Thirdly, the specific location and application of the outdoor lighting cable must be evaluated. For example, cable that is buried underground may be subject to different requirements than cable that is run along the surface of a building. Fourthly, the type of cable being used must be considered, as some types of cable are more resistant to physical damage and weather than others. In general, conduit is more likely to be required in situations where the cable is exposed to physical damage, such as in areas where it could be struck by vehicles or equipment. Conduit is also more likely to be required in areas where the cable is exposed to harsh weather conditions, such as direct sunlight, rain, or snow. In addition, conduit may be required in areas where the cable is accessible to the public, to prevent tampering or vandalism. There are several different types of conduit that can be used for outdoor lighting cable, each with its own advantages and disadvantages. Rigid metal conduit is the most durable type of conduit, providing excellent protection against physical damage and corrosion. However, it is also the most expensive and can be difficult to install, requiring specialized tools and techniques. Intermediate metal conduit is a lighter and less expensive alternative to rigid metal conduit, while still providing good protection against physical damage and corrosion. Electrical metallic tubing is a thin-walled conduit that is easy to install, but it is not as strong or corrosion-resistant as rigid metal conduit or intermediate metal conduit. Rigid polyvinyl chloride conduit is a non-metallic conduit that is resistant to corrosion and lightweight, making it easy to install. However, it is not as strong as metal conduit and can be damaged by impact or exposure to ultraviolet radiation. When selecting conduit for outdoor lighting cable, it is important to consider the specific requirements of the application, the environmental conditions, and the budget. It is also important to ensure that the conduit is properly installed, using the correct fittings and connectors, and that it is adequately supported to prevent sagging or damage. In addition to conduit, there are other methods that can be used to protect outdoor lighting cable, such as burying the cable underground or using a cable tray system. However, these methods may not be suitable for all applications, and they may be subject to different code requirements. Ultimately, the decision of whether or not to use conduit for outdoor lighting cable should be based on a careful assessment of the specific requirements of the application, the applicable codes and regulations, and the advice of a qualified electrician or electrical engineer. Remember to always consult the latest edition of the National Electrical Code or International Building Code, as well as any local amendments to ensure compliance with all applicable requirements. The information provided here is for general guidance only and should not be considered a substitute for professional advice. National Electrical Code Section 300.4F provides guidance on the protection of cables and raceways from physical damage. The specific requirements vary depending on the location and application, but in general, cables and raceways must be protected from impact, abrasion, and other physical hazards. This protection can be provided by a variety of methods, including conduit, enclosures, guards, and barriers. National Electrical Code Section 410.68 addresses the requirements for electric signs and outline lighting. This section includes provisions for the installation of conductors, the grounding of equipment, and the protection of lamps and ballasts. National Electrical Code Section 2707.13 of the International Building Code, as referenced, likely pertains to a specific aspect of electrical systems within the context of building regulations. However, without the exact text of the section, it's difficult to provide a precise interpretation. Generally, building codes address various aspects of electrical installations, including wiring methods, overcurrent protection, grounding, and the safe installation of electrical equipment. The International Building Code often references the National Electrical Code for detailed electrical requirements. In summary, the use of conduit for outdoor lighting cable is often required by the National Electrical Code and International Building Code to protect the cable from physical damage and environmental factors. The specific requirements vary depending on the location, application, and type of cable being used. It is important to consult the latest edition of the National Electrical Code and International Building Code, as well as any local amendments to ensure compliance with all applicable requirements. Always seek the advice of a qualified electrician or electrical engineer for specific guidance on your project. When installing outdoor lighting, several factors need to be considered to ensure a safe and code-compliant installation. These factors include the type of lighting fixture, the location of the fixture, the wiring method, and the grounding system. The type of lighting fixture should be selected based on the intended use and the environmental conditions. For example, fixtures that are exposed to rain or snow should be rated for wet locations. The location of the fixture should be chosen to provide adequate illumination without creating glare or hazards. The wiring method should be selected based on the type of cable being used and the location of the wiring. For example, underground wiring should be installed in conduit or direct buried cable. The grounding system should be designed to provide a safe path for fault current to return to the source. This can be achieved by grounding the metal parts of the lighting fixture and the electrical system. In addition to these factors, it is important to follow all applicable codes and regulations. This includes the National Electrical Code, the International Building Code, and any local amendments. Always consult with a qualified electrician or electrical engineer to ensure that your outdoor lighting installation is safe and code compliant. Furthermore, it is essential to understand the concept of listed and labeled equipment. Equipment that is listed by a recognized testing laboratory, such as underwriters' laboratories or electrical testing laboratories, has been evaluated and found to comply with applicable safety standards. Equipment that is labeled bears the mark of the testing laboratory, indicating that it has been listed. Using listed and labeled equipment helps to ensure that the electrical installation is safe and reliable. When installing conduit, it is important to use the correct fittings and connectors. Fittings and connectors must be listed for the type of conduit being used and must be installed in accordance with the manufacturer's instructions. Improperly installed fittings and connectors can compromise the protection provided by the conduit and may create electrical hazards. It is also important to support the conduit at appropriate intervals. The National Electrical Code specifies the maximum spacing between conduit supports, which varies depending on the size and type of conduit. Properly supporting the conduit helps to prevent sagging or damage, which can compromise the protection it provides. When running conduit underground, it is important to bury it at the proper depth. The National Electrical Code specifies the minimum burial depth for conduit, which varies depending on the type of conduit and the voltage of the circuit. Burying the conduit at the proper depth helps to protect it from physical damage and environmental factors. When installing outdoor lighting, it is also important to consider the impact on the environment. Use energy-efficient lighting fixtures and controls to reduce energy consumption. Direct the light downward to minimize light pollution, and avoid disturbing sensitive habitats or wildlife. By following these guidelines, you can install outdoor lighting that is safe, code-compliant, and environmentally responsible. Remember to always consult with a qualified electrician or electrical engineer for specific guidance on your project. They can help you select the appropriate equipment, design the wiring system, and ensure that the installation complies with all applicable codes and regulations. Furthermore, consider the use of ground fault circuit interrupters, or GFCIs, for outdoor lighting circuits. GFCIs are designed to protect people from electrical shock by detecting small amounts of current leakage and quickly interrupting the circuit. The National Electrical Code requires GFCIs for many outdoor electrical outlets and lighting circuits. When selecting outdoor lighting fixtures, consider the color temperature of the light. Color temperature is a measure of the warmth or coolness of the light, measured in Kelvin. Lower color temperatures, such as 2700 Kelvin, produce a warm, yellowish light that is often preferred for residential applications. Higher color temperatures, such as 5000 Kelvin, produce a cool, bluish light that is often preferred for commercial applications. The choice of color temperature depends on the intended use of the lighting and the desired aesthetic effect. Also, be aware of the voltage drop in long wiring runs. Voltage drop is the decrease in voltage along a conductor due to the resistance of the conductor. Excessive voltage drop can cause lighting fixtures to dim or not function properly. To minimize voltage drop, use larger conductors or reduce the length of the wiring run. The National Electrical Code provides guidance on calculating voltage drop and selecting the appropriate conductor size. Moreover, think about the use of photocells or timers to control outdoor lighting. Photocells are light-sensitive devices that automatically turn the lights on at dusk and off at dawn. Timers can be used to turn the lights on and off at specific times. Using photocells or timers can help to save energy and reduce light pollution. Outdoor lighting cable that is run in conduit provides increased protection against physical damage, such as from lawnmowers, vehicles, or vandalism. It also provides protection against environmental factors such as moisture, sunlight, and extreme temperatures. The type of conduit used should be appropriate for the environment and the type of cable being protected. The specific requirements for conduit installation are detailed in the National Electrical Code and should be followed carefully. In addition to the NEC, local codes and ordinances may have additional requirements for outdoor lighting installations. It is important to check with the local authorities to ensure compliance with all applicable regulations. The use of proper grounding techniques is essential for outdoor lighting installations. Grounding helps to protect against electrical shock and fire hazards. The National Electrical Code provides detailed requirements for grounding electrical systems. Always consult with a qualified electrician to ensure that the grounding system is properly installed. Consider the use of low-voltage lighting systems for certain outdoor applications. Low-voltage lighting systems operate at 12 volts or 24 volts, which is safer than standard 120 volts or 277 volt systems. Low-voltage lighting systems are often used for landscape lighting and pathway lighting. The use of weatherproof enclosures is essential for outdoor electrical connections. Weatherproof enclosures protect the connections from moisture, dirt, and other environmental factors. The enclosures should be listed for outdoor use and should be installed in accordance with the manufacturer's instructions. In some cases, it may be necessary to use a disconnecting means for outdoor lighting circuits. A disconnecting means is a switch or circuit breaker that can be used to de-energize the circuit for maintenance or repair. The National Electrical Code requires a disconnecting means to be readily accessible and within sight of the equipment it serves. Finally, when working with electricity, always follow safe work practices. Wear appropriate personal protective equipment such as gloves and safety glasses. De-energize the circuit before working on it. And never work on electrical equipment when you are wet or tired. By following these guidelines, you can install outdoor lighting that is safe, code compliant, and environmentally responsible. Always consult with a qualified electrician for specific guidance on your project. They can help you select the appropriate equipment, design the wiring system, and ensure that the installation complies with all applicable codes and regulations.